Oh, howdy, folks. It's your good friend Hillbilly Scribbs with you again for one of these here episodes of the Truly Bizarre World, right here exclusively on the Feed the Monster podcast feeds YouTube's channel. Yeah. And as those of you know who have been keeping track, we are smack dab in the middle of a very, very special series. That's right. We are counting down to my favorite holiday, that there International Truly Bizarre Day. And as you know, it comes around every year on the 31st of the October. And, this has been a pretty special series so far. We've learned all about those kooky mad scientists behind the Frankenstein's monsters. And we've learned all about that dude from Laguna Negra. Yeah, that's him, Mr. Gilman. And then we've also learned all about a bunches of the different kinds of Draculas out there. Well, we're going to continue that series today, and we're going to learn all about those weird resurrected freaks with all the Band-Aids. That's right. We're talking mummies. And we have a very special guest with us today to help us learn all about the mummies. Episode 21, The Curse of the Mumm-Ra. Yep, that's right. We're talking mummies today. And as I mentioned a moment ago, we have a very, very special speaker with us today here in the studio. And this is a cat that I met on the convention scene a few years back. And well, for those of y'all that don't know, part of my investigating research I do involves me going to these conventions where you got speakers that speak on things like monsters, conspiracy theories, UFOs, aliens, pod peoples, and scrolls, and woolly boogers and other cryptids. So at one of these conventions, there was a speaker speaking on mummies. And that's where I met this cat. And he's agreed to come on the show today and to teach us a little bit about mummies and the men who fight them. So without further ado, let me introduce Dr. W. Cat.
Hi, friend. I just want to correct you off the top. I'm not a doctor of anything. I'm actually a professor. I'm Professor W. Cat. I prefer not to use my first name. I don't know who's watching this. And I honestly, we met at a convention, so I don't know who your audience is. And I'm a little concerned.
I appreciate your discretion and your need for secrecy.
So, well, it's not secrecy. I was a bit of a child celebrity, if you will. Yeah. I don't like to talk about it. The reason why I want to remain anonymous is I've worked really hard to distance myself from that stuff.
Okay.
All right. So if it's cool with you, like Professor W. Cat, Professor Cat, that's all fine. Like just if we leave my first name out of this, I'd appreciate it.
All right. Well, you've got it, Doc. Now, as I said, you are an expert, sir, on mummies and the documentaries about them. So I was thinking we would start off with one of the earliest documentaries, and this was a docu that came out in 1932, and it involves this character named Frank Wimple, and he fought this mummy named Imhotep. Can you tell us a little bit about that fracas and what was going on there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm familiar with Mr. Wimple. I've been dealing with mummies and studying mummies my entire life, and Mr. Wimple encounters this Imhotep fairly early on, and later in his life. I was a kid, I was a kid, if you will, when I encountered the mummy. The Mr. Wimple encounters one at a much later age, and honestly, his mummy isn't that much to deal with. He moves very slow. He's strong, sure, he's strong, but there isn't much to him. The mummies I'm more familiar with are have a little bit more going on. They're more challenging. You know, it was the 30s. I'm sure at the time it was a very scary thing. Mr. Wemple's a Homo sapien, and that has its drawbacks when dealing with mummies.
Okay, yeah,
You know what I'm
yeah,
talking
that
about?
tracks. This is one of the first documented cases of human v mummy interaction, so it makes sense that that they'd have different mummy types out there, and this version maybe wasn't the strongest of them.
See, you got to be careful because looks can be deceiving. You might see a mummy, and it might appear to you to be fragile and frail, but with maybe a word or two, it can jack itself up, and this can be very disconcerting the first time you experience it. This emotep doesn't seem to either know the words or possibly isn't that powerful.
This is very interesting stuff, Professor. Well, let's move on. I don't know if this cat knows the words, but the next big mummy documentary that came out in the 1999 also had an Imhotep mummy in it, and he fought a dude named Richard O'Connell.
So the first thing that this documentary has going for it is that if you want to go toe to toe with a mummy, you need a very what's the word I'm looking for? Virile fellow to face the mummy. And where Wemple might have fallen far short in facing his mummy, Mr. O'Connell is more than virile enough to face a mummy and deal with a mummy. And I feel like that was one of the strengths of this documentary, was watching a man with an adventurous soul face a mummy. Where this one falls short, and this mummy is this emotep, or this version of emotep, or this incantation of emotep is far more powerful than the previous one. But where it falls short are the minions, right? The minions are just like other mummies.
Okay.
And that's not really, I mean, those are pretty easy to dispose of. When I was younger, I would ride around on my board with my sister, and we frequently encountered mummy minions. And they were far more challenging. I can name drop if you want, but I'd rather not, because I'm trying to keep anonymity. But these were creatures that were as agile as a monkey, as wily as a jackal, and as vicious and as opportunistic as a lizard.
Okay.
There's not enough variety in these minions.
You know, you might be right about that, Professor. According to the documentaries that I saw and others, the only thing that these Imhoteps had helping them out were other mummies and a bunch of bugs.
Yeah, I mean, he could spit insects out of his mouth. I'm talking about like a true mummy starts off at maybe like 4.5 to 5 feet tall. He's hunched over, so it's really tough to tell. But builds its incantation, and it's like an 8 foot tall, like makes the Rock look like he's out of shape kind of guy.
Yeah, you know, I do, and the Rock's no joke. He is the real deal. But this docu does make him look a little fake, right?
Right. It's just not proper. And even when the Rock shows up in later documentaries to be his own kind of king, right? I have dealt with far more fearsome kings and villains. You know, there was this guy I knew a long time ago, Groon the Destroyer. So Groon was a leader unto his own, and he would go toe to toe with me and my sister, our friends, and they call him our leader, but he's really like he's the younger kid on the block. He just he hit puberty a little bit sooner than the rest of us. So he grew up a little bit too fast, in my opinion. When the chips were down, he's the guy you wanted around, right? And he helped knock Groon down a couple of notches.
So what you're saying is he's the hero that we really needed in these documentaries.
Well, I mean, eventually I could have been that guy. Like I said, this kid was younger than me. It's just, you know, some people develop faster than others. It's really, you know, I don't want to say I was delayed in aging, but he was I don't know if he was on anything. I don't want to start any rumors. We all have our things, our enhancements. You know, Mark McGuire, Barry Bonds have their things, and this kid was kind of like that. He was not only did he develop fast, but then he developed further then
Okay.
you
So
probably
are
should
we
have.
talking like a human growth hormone or steroids?
I don't want to start the rumors, but if you look at him versus me and my sister, and I was like 2 years older than him. I was 2 years older than him, and here he is, and he's like 6 feet tall at like 5, 8 years old or so. I don't know.
That is so weird. I'm surprised he didn't get turned in. Was he privileged?
Oh, he was plenty privileged. He was handed like gifts of a king at such a young
Oh
age.
wow.
Right? Like I had a scrape and nickel and dime everything to afford the board that I would ride.
Wow. I'm
I would have to go forage in the woods for some berries. Right? Like he's eating like a king, and I have to go forage, and I'm getting into trouble as a kid because the berries were sweet.
Well, I'm so
sorry. That's probably a little bit off the beaten path, but
it's
I like
okay.
to vent
It's
once
all
in a
right.
while.
I can see that I hit a button there, and I am sorry about that. There's one more documentary on our list, and this one's from 2017.
Do we have to talk? This is one kind of terrible. This was terrible. I mean, the mummy itself in this movie. I don't want to knock this mummy too much because I felt like this was closer than most of them to what the mummies I've encountered in life. Again, the hero here is lacking. Like Mr. O'Connell, right? When I close my eyes, he's what I picture as a hero. Right? He's like the 8-year-old who hits puberty, but he was a man. Like he was a man when he did it. Right? Now we have our hero is like in an 8-year-old body. It's like a tiny man. Right? He's small. Right? Like I'm not a large guy. Right? But I'm larger than
his name was Nick Morton. Yep.
Nick Morton? So they could have had anybody go study the mummies and deal with the mummies, and they chose Nick Morton. Like Morton Saul?
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, does that sound heroic to you?
Not really. And you're right. He's not a big guy at all.
I mean, he could have at least lied about his name. Like he could have chosen an animal from the jungle or the desert and like named himself after that.
Okay.
Right? There are so many, like, people don't realize the big cats are some of the most well-oiled machines when it comes to pursuing its prey. And that's what you're doing when you're chasing a mummy. Everyone misunderstands that when you're chasing a mummy, they think that the mummy comes to you. No. You have to bring the war to the mummy. And you have to think like a cat.
Okay. That is interesting. I never thought of it like that.
You wouldn't, but when you're dealing with minions that are lizards and jackals and monkeys, and you're dealing with other big cats, you yourself have to become that cat. I don't mean a cat with no butthole. You have to be a cat with a butthole because it doesn't work if you don't have one. Right? Hollywood imagines cats without buttholes. And this is another thing that we can discuss on another show another time. But I promise you, I know firsthand cats have buttholes.
That tracks. Cats do have tiny holes, and some have human teeth too.
I had an uncle, and he was a large man, and he would frequently he walked around with nunchucks a lot, and it was weird, but it was like his thing. And he would set his nunchucks outside the toilet. And if this thing didn't clog 3 times a week, I'd be lying to you. He was a very large man. He didn't need enough fiber in his diet, but he lived his life like a panther.
Okay.
And I appreciated that. He was one of the most virile men I've ever met, and an expert at dealing with mummies.
Oh wow, that is fascinating. Sounds like all of these heroes that we've seen in the documentaries really weren't what we needed in order to face the mummies. They weren't really the real deal. Maybe that's why the mummies keep coming back. Maybe. What do you think?
Mr. Scribbs, if you will, any of these guys, you know what they all have in common? They only have 2 eyes.
Okay.
And to be the mummy,
you need
3. You need 3 eyes to be the mummy.
Mhm.
And that third eye allows you to see beyond sight.
Oh, like a sight beyond sight, huh? Interesting. I
You
did
didn't know
not.
this? How long have you been
Well,
studying mummies?
Since last weekend. I kind of studied up on.
Oh, so you're just like a new addition to the mummy.
Yeah.
The mummy family.
Yeah, pretty much, because I had to study about all the Frankensteins and that dude, the Gilman dude, and all of the different Draculas first.
So how many of these mummies are demon priests?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I don't remember that from the docus.
Oh, so these really aren't real mummies.
Okay.
Right? Like these are mummy light, if you
Okay.
will. My family comes from a long line of mummy fighters. Like I said, I've been dealing with this my whole life. And I can tell you firsthand, there's a mummy that speaks to the ancient spirits of evil.
Okay.
And that's the incantation that allows a mummy to really reach its true and heightened power. And you can only do this if you start off as a demon priest and you get essentially eternal life. I think that you have to dive deeper to understand. People call it the mythology, but I call it the science
Interesting.
of mummies. Are you familiar with the works of Thundera?
Thundera? No, I don't think so.
So these are some fairly old documentaries. And they're not as old as your 1932 documentary, but they are far more accurate. And these were done in the 80s, the 1980s, if you will. You may or may not see some familiar faces there. Again, please keep my name out of this. But I highly recommend you seek these out and see what happens when a mummy speaks to the other side and pulls the power of the ancient spirits of evil into it. Because I promise you, it's a lot worse than a couple of bugs. And when you're a child on a board with your sister in the forest and you encounter a mummy like this, man, it changes your life.
Oh, wow. This is good stuff, Professor. You know, if I or my viewers wanted to dig a little deeper into this, Professor Cat, is there anything like what should we look up?
So I'm reluctant to say his name because I'm not sure what your fans are going to do with it. But I can repeat his incantation. Maybe his name is in that incantation.
Like Candyman or Beetlejuice?
No, it's not even like the Evil Dead stuff, right? Like it's not like if I say it, it's going to happen. If he says it, bad things happen. So give me a second because I'm trying to remember how it starts. Ancient spirits of evil, transform this decayed form to Mumm-Ra, the ever-living.
Now, if you've got a story or a topic idea for the truly bizarre world, the best thing to do is to download the Anchor app onto your mobile device. And you can go on there and look up the Feeding the Monster podcast feed and leave us a voice message. And, you know, it's just like making a phone call and leaving a message, except for you only got a minute to do it. And you know what? That's actually a good thing because it keeps the super secret government agencies from tracking your calls. That's right, folks. You can also leave comments and questions and suggestions for future show topics right down there in the comment section as well. And who knows, you might be part of a future truly bizarre world. Also, make sure you're checking out all of the great content here on the YouTube's channel, and check out all of our stuff over on the podcast feed as well. A lot of great content. Probably something for everyone. So check it out. You'll be glad that you did. And, you know, until next time, you folks know what to do. Y'all keep it real. Y'all keep it weird. and y'all keep it glorious.